Concealed carriers of Reddit, when was a time you actually pulled your gun on someone and how was the situation handled? I pulled my pistol only once. I was working at a bar. I had to shut the event down early that night because of a large fight that broke out. As everyone was pouring out, some idiot pulled a pistol from his waistband and started shooting into the air. I drew my firearm on him and he ran. Nothing else happened. Cops were pretty pissed when they showed up though. 3 AM at a 24-hour Walmart. I was working overnights at the time, just picking up some essentials on my night off. I park away from other cars at this Walmart cause it's the worst one in town. When I come out, 2 other cars were parked near me. I see someone lurking not too far away and see them pacing around. As I approach my car on the passenger side to drop my purchases into the back seat, the person belines it for me. They turn down the path between the 2 cars near me. I didn't even say anything. I drew, but kept the gun down to my side. They stopped and booked it. I've never been more happy to carry. Was in our local Walmart parking lot with my wife and daughter when we were walking back to our car after shopping and 2 young men approached us and asked for money. I told them that I didn't have any cash and they said that was okay since we could hand over my wallet and purses as they pulled knives. I carry on my right side by my kidney so it appears I am reaching for my wallet when I pull out my weapon. They start running and we call 911 so that the police can get our statements and video from Walmart parking lot. My wife was always against me carrying when I am with her, but now she is fine with me carrying where I am allowed. BTW, I live in SoCal. I was once confronted on my motorcycle by an angry motorist. They were upset that I was trying to make a U-turn and oncoming traffic wasn't clearing. He approached me, punched my helmet. I told him to back off or something bad would happen. He started towards me again. I pulled my jacket up to grab it, and I'm guessing the lady saw the grip. She immediately started screaming at him to get back in the car, which he did. The funny thing is that as they drove away, she had the audacity to flip me off as they drove by. A buddy of mine got jumped in broad daylight by 3 guys in a grocery store parking lot for his iPhone. He had been attempting to sell it at the Eco ATM, and when it didn't offer him as much as he was hoping, an iPhone 8, and it wanted to give him like $180, he gave up. They had been scoping it out and followed him outside. As he walked past their truck towards me in the car, they grabbed a tire iron out of their truck bed and started attacking him. Me being a few spaces down ran over yelling to back off. Then noticing they had no intention of stopping and I was outnumbered, I pulled my gun and shouted to stop once more. 2 of them looked up and saw me, which made them then immediately back away and run for their truck. It being illegal to shoot someone retreating, I kept the gun up and dialed 911 as I moved towards my buddy. They got away, got his phone too, but he only ended up with 8 stitches in his forehead and a bruised shoulder blade. Could have been way worse. Relaying a story from my husband. He was in college, asleep in his bedroom in his split-level townhouse. His roommates were out of town that particular night, weekend or some sort of break holiday. Wakes up to loud banging and the door opening. Then hears odd voices saying unintelligible things, and footsteps. Quickly realizes it's not a roommate coming home early. Grabs his weapon and sneaks upstairs. His bedroom was on the lower level. Sees 2 guys in the kitchen. No lights on. Going through the fridge. He flipped on lights. Weapon drawn and yelled at them to get on the floor. After much yelling on both sides, and probably some pissed pants, he realized that they were his Asian neighbors. They were pissed drunk and had gotten apartments confused. This was a complex of duplex townhouses that all looked alike. It was easy to do sober. They had left their keys at the bar and kicked the door in, and were in the process of trying to figure out where the hell their leftovers were when my now husband scared the piss out of them. All parties calmed down and came to an agreement that no cops would be called, charges filed, as it was a rather honest mistake. In fact, the neighbors came back the next day and fixed the door. So, not a life and death, almost murdered or saved someone's life situation. Actually kinda funny now in hindsight. Edit. Lot of people concerned why I specified Asian neighbors. The 2 guys were conversing in their native language. He heard that, which led to confusion and uncertainty to a groggy guy who was just rudely awoken by someone breaking into his apartment, and B, confirmed that the people inside were not his roommates. I lived in Ghetto Duck in Denver. Had my car broken into twice in the last 3 months. Broken window. Car itself attempted to be stolen. I was at my wit's end between that, a ratty living situation, and a ratty job. I called the cops on a couple of guys breaking into a car in the driveway, not mine. They came to mine and picked up a rock to break my windshield another goddamn time, and I ducking had enough. Walked out into the yard. One of them pulled a knife and came at me. So I drew my sidearm. Idiot realized he was bringing a knife to a gunfight and the two took off. Cops caught them 2 blocks away. Edit for everyone asking. Next to the Aurora border next to Colfax. Edit 2. No one gives a rit that you've been to Atlanta or Chicago. A cop had pulled us over and asked my dad to hand over his gun, which they can do in Ohio. He didn't, and the cop gave it back after the stop was over. Well, as most stories on threads like this go, not me but a friend of mine. He has a CCW. He was picking up his GF from college. As they were driving away, her psycho ex shows up and starts following them in his car. The ex started to get road rage and would speed up then back off, get up next to them and drop back. My friend has the girl call 911. They give dispatch all the info and stay on the phone. They keep driving, waiting for police. When the ex speeds past them, then stops his car, perpendicular to the road, blocking my friend. X starts approaching the car with tire iron. Fearing for his safety and the safety of his GF, my friend got out of his car and drew his firearm. He aimed at the X and told him to stop or he wowed fire. X continued to approach, so my friend fired, hitting the X. X ran back to his own car and took off. Police finally arrived and were able to track the X down. X was arrested on multiple crimes. My friend was cleared. Obvious they took his gun as evidence but no repercussions. For background, I am a police officer and carry off duty almost 137 of the time. One night about midnight I was on my way home from work and needed to stop at an ATM. I parked and walked around the corner and there was a person at the ATM being robbed by a suspect who appeared to have a knife or some kind of sharp object. At that time, I was carrying a Glock 36.45 ACP. I drew my pistol, identified myself as a police officer, and ordered the suspect to drop his weapon. Instead of dropping it, the suspect turned and lunged towards me. So I shot him 2 times center mass and he went down. I called 911. Cops showed up in about a minute and rescue got there about 5 minutes later. I hit him once in the sternum and once in the shoulder. Thankfully he survived. The weapon turned out to be a sharpened screwdriver. I've been a police officer for 15 years and it's the only time I have ever drawn my off-duty weapon and the only time I have ever shot someone. I'm glad he lived. I didn't want to kill him but his actions left me with no choice but to fire. I haven't but I helped a friend teach concealed weapons courses. He was NRA certified. I was not. I was there because he would have large groups. Sometime 20-30 people. And it was nice to have some extra eyes. Plus I learned a lot. Anyway, he rode a Hayabusa pretty much everywhere. A guy crossed multiple lanes of traffic after merging onto the road and almost rammed into him. He speeds up and gives him the finger. The guy in the truck follows him down many random roads. Finally, not wanting to punch it at 180 miles per hour to get away and definitely not wanted the guy to follow him to his house, he pulls over. The guy gets out of the truck, goes to the bed, and grabs an axe. My friend has his gun in his backpack and he sticks his hand in there ready to draw. He tells the guy that he's armed and to not come any closer. The guy stops, seems drunk, and yells at him. Finally, a cop pulls up behind the truck and arrests the guy. Tells my friend he can leave and that's it. Edit. I know it's an old comment but I will amend my story. My friend did not let the man know he was armed. Instead he simply warned the guy not to come any closer and to leave him alone. I think he called the police before pulling over but I have not confirmed that. Thankfully I haven't been in a situation where I needed to. The only time I've drawn mine was when a friend's house was broken into. And in that case the person that did it was already gone. Most of my friends have their permit and carry, but only one has drawn on someone. To make a long story short, it was a gas station. Late at night, someone lifted their shirt, showed off the handle of a gun and reached for it after telling my friend they wanted money. Friend drew on them, and the person ran. No shots fired. I carry a .44 Magnum. One time I was going around in my huge pickup truck eating a bacon cheeseburger with one hand and lazily twirling my revolver in my other hand, which was draped out the driver's side window. I live in Texas. Eagle Corps. What all the Europeans are expecting to read in this thread. I've been a carry concealed permit holder for almost 30 years. I've carried every day that I knew it wasn't going to be verboten. I'm going to the post office and a bar. No guns, and I've never had to draw. I've always been extra special nice to people because I've got a gun. I really don't want to be backed into a corner where I have to pull a weapon. So I guess I would say that I've become better at de-escalating. Because if I'm willing to draw, that means I'm willing to kill. And I really don't want to do that. This won't count, but I came across a mangled and barely alive groundhog in a rural but residential area. A dog was mauling it, letting it drag itself a little ways, grabbing it again. I can't stand to see anything suffer like that, so I ran the dog off, yelled at it, and shot the groundhog. Bagged it up, and got out of Dodge before anyone could say or do anything. I buried the groundhog when I got home and put a cinder block over it so nothing dug it up. My wife, girlfriend at the time, was doghouse sitting for a family friend for a weekend. I stayed the nights with her because it was a big house out in the country with the closest neighbors being about a half mile away, and she was scared. We woke up in the morning and left to run some errands. We left through the garage and closed the garage door when we left. We returned to the home to find the front door wide ass open. We had never used the front door. It had been locked the whole time and we exited through the garage door when we left, so this felt way off. I assumed the door had been kicked in or that an invader had found a way to unlock it. I immediately draw my pistol, thinking there might be a bad guy still in there. Although there are no other cars around. I want to make sure the dog is okay, so I go in. I loudly shouted before entering that we had called the police and that they were on their way. Room by room I cleared the house. No one was there and nothing appeared to be rummaged or missing. And the dog was fine. Honestly, no idea how that door was opened. Still bugs me to think about, honestly. It was quite spooky. In hindsight, it was incredibly, ridiculously stupid of me to enter that home. Nothing came of it obviously. But I should absolutely have waited to let law enforcement check it out. Hindsight is 20/20 though. At the time I was riding a major adrenaline rush and hoping the dog was okay. A college friend and I were in a Chili's parking lot heading in to meet some ROTC buddies. A guy comes up to him acting weird, shaking, and just plain odd. He asks for money, and we say that we don't carry cash. He then says white boys always have cash, then pulls a knife. He was too close to my friend for him to draw his weapon, but across the hood of the Jeep from me. So I drew my 1911. When my hammer cocked back, the guy locked eyes on me and gave my buddy a chance to draw his gun. Realizing that he was in a bad situation, he dropped his knife and found somewhere else to be. Real fast. No one died, no one got mugged, and I still got that, surprisingly, nice knife. I own a firearm that sits in my nightstand drawer. Don't have my concealed permit. I woke one night to loud noises coming from my living room around 3 AM. I grabbed the gun and cautiously moved down the hallway. It was my cat. He got into some catnip somehow and was freaking out and knocked a bunch of random stuff over and off shelves. Duck you, buddy. Before I got my license to carry, I have only had to almost use my handgun once. My girlfriend left our apartment around 10 PM to go to a dance practice across town, and 3 teenagers who went to the local high school in the area watched her leave. She got in her car and called me telling me about it, and while I was on the phone with her, I heard noises by the bedroom window, which I was sitting by. I grabbed my handgun and had it pointed at the window until the cops came. They were all caught and arrested. Have my permit but haven't had to use my firearm defensively. Do have a close friend who got off work kinda late and was going to visit family out of state. Was gassing up his truck when a very large man tried to carjack him. Friend drew on the guy and sorta punched him in the face with the gun. Guy took off as quick as he could. Friend got out of there and then had to pull over to vomit. Pretty common response. Also may want to check out RDGUR Concealed Carry and RCCW. I didn't actually draw, but almost had to. My girlfriend and I were staying in Seattle for Valentine's Day. Restaurants were booked pretty solid since we made our plans last minute, but there was a higher end place open until about midnight or so as a Valentine's Day special. So we booked a table for 10:30. We were going somewhere nice, so we were both dressed a lot nicer than usual. I'm wearing a blazer and dress shoes. I have my pistol on my right hip. It was about a 15-minute walk to the restaurant from our hotel. The hotel charged something like $20 or so every time you took your car out. So we opted to walk. We also planned on drinking, so it seemed like the smarter option. We eat our food and by the time we leave it's about 12:15. So we get back near our hotel around 12:30. As we are across walk away from the entrance, a rough looking guy approaches my girlfriend who is on my right and starts asking her for money. I step between him and her and he says that he isn't homeless or a beggar, but his car broke down and he needs $60 for a belt or something like that for his engine. I could see him glancing at the crosswalk sign and I knew I didn't want to get stuck on that side of the road. So I told him I'll talk to him as we walk across. While in the intersection I tell him I don't have any cash on me. He tells me that he will pay me back after he gets his car fixed. And I reiterate I don't have any money. He motions to an ATM kiosk and says that I can get out money at the ATM for him and says again that he will pay me back. I notice at this point that he has a pocket knife clip in his front left pocket and his eyes are darting between my girlfriend and I's faces and my torso. Also he keeps fumbling around with the pocket that the knife is in. I knew for sure there was no way I was going to do that and we were about 100 feet or so from the hotel entrance, so I just say sorry man. I can't help you. He says again I'm not homeless or anything, I have money to pay you back if you go to the ATM. I ignore that and we start to walk away from him. As I do that he grabs onto the pocket clip a little more firmly. At that point I lifted up my dress shirt which revealed to him that I had my pistol on me and he walked away pretty quickly without saying anything. My heart was pounding hard and I was so mad. I was thinking I can't believe this guy is going to put me in this ducking position. I don't want to shoot anyone. Especially not over $60. But duck. Scariest moment of my life and I'm glad it went down the way it did. Throwaway and not too much detail because I have a family I care about. I was home and heard a noise outside. So I took my handgun and phone to investigate. I checked I had a round ready as I walked downstairs. When I got outside I heard a struggle coming from my neighbor's house. And then the lady screamed for help. And was cut off mid-scream. I started dialing 911 as I started around the bushes to get to their drive. But all I could say was police when they asked me what service was needed, since I had rounded the bushes and could see my neighbor punching his wife in the face while he was choking her. I told him to let her go. And he reacted by smashing the back of her head into the concrete. So I took a step to my right to get a good angle and I shot him twice in the abdomen. He dropped her and fell away from her, made a strange sort of sighing noise and went still, and that was more or less it. The police arrived and took my gun, and statements from me and the wife, and 2 other neighbors who had been on the phone to the police and watched the whole situation. I wasn't arrested or charged, and I was told by one of the cops that the guy had been violent to the wife before and she had told him she wanted a divorce. And he decided to kill her over it. I got my gun back a few weeks later. The lady was pretty grateful, but my girlfriend at the time went very odd towards me and then left me a month later. She told me years later she regretted that. But at the time she was freaked out I had killed someone and wasn't particularly bothered by it. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want to kill him. I just didn't see another solution in the time I had to react. And I have no regrets in the sense I would do it again in the same situation. So that is the only time I have used my gun to defend myself or anyone else. I am glad that most people get the results they need without hurting people. Why is this downvoted? I want to know. My friend flashed his gun at someone who accidentally bumped their car into his truck door. They started yelling at each other, so he pulled out his gun to threaten the guy. Guy immediately called the cops and blocked his truck into the parking spot. He spent a night in jail, then ended doing like 100 hours community service. Also got his concealed carry permit revoked. I honked at a guy who was driving erratically, speeding, and nearly hit me passing on a double yellow. He slammed on his brakes, ran me onto the shoulder, jumped out of his truck with the hammer in his hand, and ran towards my side of the vehicle. By the time he got there, my gun was pointed directly at his face. He put his hands up, dropped the hammer, got back in his truck and drove off. I've never been so terrified. I'm a woman BTW. I called the police non-emergency line when I got home and reported what happened. Nothing ever came of it, other than me never leaving the house without my gun anymore.